Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. My name is Kristen. I will be your webinar host today for Keep Pace with Global Privacy Laws and Automate Compliance. So we have an exciting agenda for today. We're going to discuss the ongoing challenges that we face in the privacy world, our general approaches to these challenges, understanding frameworks, best practices, and then, as promised, some Q&A towards the end of the session. So jumping right into it.
Yeah, so currently we have 137 countries out of 194 that have privacy laws in place, which basically highlights the growing global recognition of data protection as a fundamental right and means that the majority of the world is working to regulate how personal data is collected, stored, and used.
Yeah, and that's a lot of privacy laws to keep on top of, Paria. And and that's just at the global level. In the US, there's a number of new state consumer privacy laws that has just exploded, especially in this past year, which are addressing a wide range of industries and technologies, including consumer health, children's use on social media, and of course, AI. And, especially, within this past year, we've seen an 80% increase in the number of US state laws, 16 of which were passed in the last 3 years. Also, an 80% increase in the number of laws in effect, with 8 more going into effect next year in 2025. And AI is now the biggest topic for lawmakers, where they've introduced over 120 AI-related bills in Congress at the federal level. And the states have to jump in here too, introducing 45 bills just in this year alone. And that's a lot to keep up in a short period of time, which, can leave you feeling overwhelmed. So when new laws are passed and enacted, you need to understand whether that law applies to your business, how it applies, and when it goes into effect. Then you need to translate the law's requirements into business requirements. Determine what you need to do to be in compliance. Well, that takes time and money. And if you're doing it yourself, you're doing the research on the law's requirements, perhaps reading the law text itself. And that also takes a lot of time. You might engage outside legal counsel to figure out, like how it applies to your business, and that adds to cost. And next, you'll want to compare like the new law against other laws your business may have to comply with. That can be highly manual, involving a spreadsheet to do the comparison. This is time consuming, expensive, and requires a high level of manual effort. There has to be a better way.
Yeah, let's poll the group. So the question is, what pain points do you face when complying with multiple laws and standards globally? It's time consuming, it's manual, administrative overhead. There's too many things to keep track of. And I really hope this is a multiple choice question because from talking to customers, I know that lots of these apply. All right, let's see the answers. Okay, so pretty close. The first one, there's too many to keep track of, was 62%. A close second with 57%. It's time consuming. We've got the manual task. That's 33% voted for all the manual work. And then admin overhead, 19%. So a lot of you feel like there's too many things to keep track of, and it's just time consuming in general to keep track of all of them.
Yeah, and especially, with small privacy teams, that is a huge challenge, especially if the processes to do so are manual, figuring out exactly what applies to your organization. So yeah, that's not really a surprise, is that Kristen or Paria?
No, not at all, especially with the slide that you covered, Joanne, showing all the new laws that were just introduced this year. It's a
Yeah,
lot for
that's just the
anyone.
United States.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, we do have an approach, and Yeah, Paria, you want to talk about what we've come up with?
Absolutely. So we are here to help you guys out, basically. So we want to make the process a little bit easier. And if Kristen, if you go to the next slide, I will like to set up yeah, just show you the setup of what our general approach is to privacy regulatory compliance. We basically have divided this to 4 steps: requirements, assess, compliance, approval, and reporting. In first, we identify which laws and frameworks apply to our businesses, and this helps us to understand our obligations under different regulations. For example, does GDPR apply? Does CCPA apply? Where we want to start is very important, and I think we should start from requirements. What kind of laws apply to our business? And then assessment. We assess where we currently comply and identify any gaps within our business, so we know exactly where those improvements should come from. And in compliance step, we based on those gaps that we have identified earlier, we create a remediation plan and measure our readiness and benchmark ourselves against industry and standards to ensure that we are fully in compliance with the current regulation. And at very last, in the approval and reporting, we finally want to regularly review and report on these compliance to ensure that there is transparency and accountability across the organization. And by following all these 4 steps, we can ensure a comprehensive and a structured approach to managing privacy compliance efficiently.
Yeah, and thank you, Paria, for outlining that. And these are a lot of, while it's, 4 key phases, there's a lot of work that goes into each of those. And technology can help streamline that. One, identifying what may be applicable to your business. So based upon your business location, where you do business, where you have employees, along with the industries that you operate in, the types of individuals or people whose data you process, we can automatically identify which laws are most likely applicable to your business based upon that information. So helping to give you a jump start on, first of all, determining, does this apply to me? And then we've done the work involved that translating those legal requirements into business requirements or controls. So the actions your business needs to take to comply with the legal requirements. So we've done that translation for you. And then, going into the next phase, through to the assessment phase, where technology can help is help you immediately dive into that process and start assessing your business's level of compliance or readiness to comply with the law or regulation or framework or standard. So leveraging common controls, which I'll get into a little bit more here shortly, will help you really, really streamline this process. And then next, you'll have a real-time picture of where your business stands with complying with the standard as you complete the assessment, and also see how that translates into complying with requirements across multiple jurisdictions. And then lastly, you'll be able to see where you need to make improvements and prioritize those based upon your business's strategic needs. So, outlining like, here are the things that we need to do, make sure that to-do list is aligning with your business goals, and the technology is here to help you do that. And then lastly, that approval and review phase, you're able to review the evidence on how your business meets the requirements or close out tasks. So you're managing, the managing and making sure you're making progress on the things that you need to do, the improvements that you need to make. And you can improve that the control has been met. So the technology lets you take it through an approval process and then report to your stakeholders where you stand, that the assessment and the required improvements have been completed, or, provide a in progress report, or, be able to report like, here are our priorities and these are the reasons why, and the risks that you're trying to manage. So the idea is that, it's helping you save time, but also continuously understand, address, track, and measure your compliance. Then the next slide, and so we're gonna dive into common controls, and I've been with TrustArc for 25 years, and I've read more privacy laws than I care to admit or even can count. And after a while, they start to look the same, even though they have nuanced differences. And as you read through just even a few of the different privacy laws, especially like the US consumer privacy laws here in the United States, you'll start to see that they share similar requirements. And actually, especially on the consumer privacy laws, the states borrow language from each other. So you'll see similar requirements such as, having security measures in place or providing a privacy notice that's easily accessible. So how can these similar requirements be merged into one? It's through common controls. And a common control is a materially similar set of requirements that are shared across multiple standards. So meaning it's a requirement shared across multiple, if the requirement is shared across those multiple standards, you only have to do the work once. So how do we determine what's common? A framework like the TrustArc, the next slide, please. Thank you. A framework like the TrustArc Privacy and Data Governance Framework, which you see over on the framework element column on the slide. That's how we organize everything into like 56 core privacy and data governance controls that we map laws and regulations and other frameworks to this. And then we start to better see where the common requirements lie. And if we go to the next slide, basically leveraging a framework, it's gonna help reduce the time in, identifying possible common requirements. So first you got kind of this, jumble of laws, and, based upon our poll, there's a lot of them. And it's very time consuming to keep up on all these. And it's kind of like, okay, well, I think I read this one over here. And then you may, start organizing them, like, they start to look somewhat similar. But a framework really helps you identify like what is that key control. And, and that's where the technology helps, is that, we've done that work for you, is taking those, organized requirements and saying, and going through and identifying like, hey, here are the similar ones. And, it aligns with this particular part of the framework. And, that gives you that one single common control that's going to help you get the most bang for your buck in terms of, doing the work once and reducing duplicative efforts and saving time, because you've already done the work and you've identified what you need to do. And so taking a framework approach has many benefits. Next slide. Which, we have outlined here. First of all, gives you that consistent approach to complying with requirements. So having, that common control or framework you have a way to approach a particular requirement consistently throughout all areas of your organization. And, and especially doing that across multiple regulations, having that consistency is really going to help communicate that you have the appropriate practices in place. And it also makes it easier to integrate new requirements. As we highlighted earlier, just the number of new laws just, coming into effect, starting next year in the US, that's 8 of them. And it's, you need to figure out, how do you integrate those requirements? Well, having a framework approach makes that easier. Also, it helps you reduce your organizational risk by having a consistent approach, which makes it easier to communicate to your business stakeholders that, what the approach is, and be able to communicate that consistently. And also it enables you to integrate those new requirements much more effectively, and then allows you to focus on what is truly new and different. Also, a framework approach allows for a single source of information when you're creating your baseline documentation and prioritizing and figuring out exactly what needs to be done. And then lastly, it enables you to demonstrate alignment with established industry practices, create cross-functional cooperation across your different teams, such as privacy, compliance, and security. And next slide, the TrustArc benchmark survey shows that taking a framework approach versus taking a strictly regulatory approach results in higher privacy compliance. And, rather than going through law by law, just tying everything back to a framework really just helps streamline, making that compliance much easier.
All right, so we have a couple of questions that we're going to ask our experts. So how do I assess my readiness and effectiveness? What is the best approach and that you would recommend?
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. Yeah, so you can quickly and effectively assess your level of readiness to comply with multiple standards, leveraging TrustArc's library of over 1,100 common controls that have been identified across over 100 different laws, regulations, and standards, like ISO or SOC 2, or the EU AI Act. For example, if you need to comply with multiple US state laws, you can assess this easily at the same time, starting with 1 or 2 laws. And then you're going to start to see progress in which requirements are common across all of them as you answer the questions, which we kind of illustrate on the next slide. So on the slide here, you'll see a bunch of names of laws in one of the screenshots and some progress bars. And this is where you can kind of start to see, as you answer questions for one standard, you'll start to see progress on the others. And that's because they share common requirements. And we've identified those for you. And then the other thing, when completing an assessment, a lot of times, you'll read a question, you're like, well, why is it asking me that? Why do I need to answer that? And that's where the Nimity AI bot comes in. It's there to help you understand the requirements while you're working through the questions. So it's there to help you at the point that you're needing it. And also, we provide transparency into which laws and specific sections of the law they're mapped into a common control, and what the question is based upon. Paria, you got anything to add there?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly touch base on how um, organizations or businesses with low maturity in privacy uses the system to basically map out the places that they need improvement and they can track that progress. However, another way that a lot of organizations or businesses use the system is when they want to introduce a product and they have a privacy by design approach and they want to look at how this product is in compliant with the standards and regulation out there. They can use the system to track their if there is any gaps or if there is any measurements that they need to take to get to the level that they need. So businesses and organizations can use it in various ways, but they can basically have it out there visually mapped out for them.
Great, thank you, ladies. So the next question, how do I prioritize which laws to comply with first? There are so many.
Yeah,
Where's a good place to start and how do I figure it out?
yeah, and there is a lot of them, and that is a common question that we get. Of course, the answer is it depends on your business, and what you're focused on. So, are you, a US based business, and you're focused on wrapping your arms around all the different consumer privacy laws. So there, if that's, the key focus, I recommend starting with CCPA in Colorado or Virginia, to kind of get those core differences and start to really take advantage and leverage the commonalities across these, and see progress on the others. Also, if you're focused on global laws, I recommend starting with GDPR. Not only, that's recognized as the gold standard, but a number of national data protection laws are based on it. So, it is a great starting point if you're, really looking at your practices on a global scale. And if the focus is on security, start with, ISO 27001. We've licensed the use of a few different ISO standards, which you can assess your, privacy program and security program against. There's probably some other approaches to this. Paria, what do you think here?
Yeah, I mean, this is such a great question. And when we faced with so many regulations, I believe there is a great way to prioritize is to approach it from a risk perspective as well. So focusing on the areas that poses a great risk to your business is also very important, whether that's a potential for a regulatory fine or a data breach or even a reputational damage. This will allow you to address the most critical areas first. And then another way that I can think is to align your compliance effort with your strategic business initiatives. So, for example, if your organization is heavily involved in AI, you should prioritize laws such as EU AI. I believe Colorado AI Act could also apply, and the list could go on and on. But focusing on regulations that directly impact your key business elements would help you to stay ahead of the potential risk while supporting your organization's growth.
All right, that's great.
All right. And how do I go about measuring progress with my program? Is there any way where I can measure progress and see what I'm in compliance with and what I'm not, or what's the best approach to that?
I can start on this. So one powerful way is to achieving certifications and seals that demonstrate compliance with major privacy framework. So these certifications not only show that the organizations meet standards, but also provide credibility and build trust with the customer, clients, the stakeholders. And displaying a privacy certification seal on your website or within your marketing material is a clear and a visible way to signal that organizations are prioritizing protections and then taking it seriously, which basically enhance your reputations. And then in addition, there are some regular audits, gap assessments, and tracking remediation efforts over time could be very essential metrics to ensure that there is an ongoing progress and there is an improvement within the privacy program.
Yeah, and
yeah, go ahead.
and PrivacyCentral is well positioned to help you do that with both in progress reporting, as well as being able to generate a final report on a particular standard that you've been working on and that you need to communicate to your stakeholders. And then also we do provide views, to enable you to manage your or measure your program over time through some reporting to show how what improvements that you've made year over year as you do the reassessment, because that is an important part of the process to ensure that if things have changed, that the appropriate controls continue to be in place and that they continue to be effective. So the PrivacyCentral is definitely well set up to help you see that measurement and how you're doing through your program. Looking at not only from a progress view, but also from a control effectiveness view. How not only do you have the controls in place, but what type of documentation do you have to demonstrate that you are meeting that particular control or requirement? So it's right there at your fingertips.
Great, thank you both. So we do have a couple questions in the chat. One question, what are the best privacy certs for a business to achieve as a first step? So what are the best privacy certifications for a business to achieve as a first step?
Well, Paria, this is your day today. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think Joanne touched base on a little bit slides earlier, but I believe if you are staying local and looking at it from like a US perspective, a CCPA would be a great one to start with. And then going into the more global GDPR could be another regulations that definitely businesses should look into. I say CCPA because in US it's the most one with the highest standards out there, but again that applies with GDPR as well. And I believe enterprise could be a good addition to have, as well as APAC. We see there are a lot of changes with APAC coming up, so that could be also another lens if we have any transfer of data within the business.
Yeah, and we do have a variety of certifications to support, helping you demonstrate, wherever you're at in your building out your privacy program and what you're focused on. As Paria mentioned, our enterprise privacy certification that shows that you have those core baseline controls that are in place. Then we also have our responsible AI certification if you're incorporating AI into your solutions and your products. This is a great way to show that you have put responsible AI data governance and privacy measures in place. And also, you know, the APEC, CBPR and PRP certification, which will help support your data transfers as well as, you know, verification for meeting the requirements of the data protection frame or data privacy framework, DPF. So, you know, we definitely have a wide variety of certifications that can help you. And I think Paria made some great recommendations on kind of where to start.
And I know the AI certification has been really popular. That's a newer certification that we're offering at TrustArc. It came out this year and it's been a big hit so far. We have another question. Please give an example of the type of evidence gathering techniques you use to demonstrate compliance with privacy.
Yeah. Joanne, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just got super excited. So we see on day-to-day basis when customers come to us with variety of evidence and documentations that they have, but the majority of documentations and evidence gathering that I see from customers is basically contracts with either controllers or processors, their privacy policies, contracts with their sub-processors, and a lot of security policies, which basically describes your organization's policy when it comes to security to minimize any kind of, I would say, data breach. Other than that, I wanted to add that based on each regulations, we could provide different set of evidences, and it's not basically a pattern that we see a lot of time, but again, these are the most common that I see on day-to-day basis. Joanne, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, and one of the things that the technology helps do, especially, you know, where you're answering a question, you say, yes, I have this control in place. Based upon the types of documentation that you load into the system, it will automatically recommend like, oh, hey, you know, for this particular question, your privacy notice would be a great form of evidence to help demonstrate that you have this control in place. Or, you know, your acceptable use policy would be like another example where you may want to be able to demonstrate that, yes, you do have you only collect the data that's, you know, absolutely necessary. You have data minimization practices in place. The processing is, you know, limited to, you know, what is needed for that particular service or product. Those would be, you know, some examples, and the, you know, system would automatically recommend those based upon the types of documents that you load into what we would call your evidence library.
Great, thank you. I think that wraps up all the questions that we've had. So I want to thank everyone for joining today. Thank you, Joanne and Paria. It was a great discussion and appreciate you both. All right, thanks everyone. Have a good night.